Hi everyone, welcome to the webinar. Depending on where you're joining us, we have quite an international group today. I'm joining you from Brisbane in Australia, and we've got Dom and Ben joining us from Europe, so all different types of time zones joining today. Thanks a lot for being with us. My name is Tim, I come from the CluedIn team. I'm joined with some good people from Telefónica Tech and Microsoft, in Dominic and Ben, and we've got some good content to share with you today. Obviously, we have, for those who are heading to the beautiful city of Stockholm in Sweden for the FabCon towards the end of this month, I can at least say that Ben and I are looking forward to seeing you there. I think Dominic might be a little bit sour. He can't make it. But we've got some teasers and some good content to show you in preparation for those few days that we have together. Today is really about driving through some of the components of really what allows companies to achieve a couple of key things around delivering data that's ready for insight. I think I don't have to be that person because Dominic and Ben are also exposed to this. Also, everybody on the call is exposed to this as well, in that there's a pretty amazing technology in front of us. I don't think anyone is doubting the possibilities and opportunities with large language models. And let's not forget some of the good old technology we've already got in front of us, like business intelligence and robotic RPA and smart bots and things like this. I think one of the things we've all realized here between the three of us and the three entities we represent is that making sure we're delivering data that is actually ready for insight to the scale and to the velocity and to the expectations that companies are expecting. There's a lot of work involved in this. And the good thing is we've got some good people and we've got some good technology to help us along the way. And so where we're going to kick off today in the agenda is Dom is going to kick us off with just, his verbal thoughts, his verbal experience. It's always a good webinar where there's no slides. So Dom has promised no slides. And then Ben's going to take us into his and Telefónica Tech's experience with implementing technologies like Microsoft Fabric and CluedIn. We'll end up with covering some of the announcements from the CluedIn and Microsoft team for the FabCon in Stockholm. I really hope we get to see some of you there, and we'll end with some Q&A. So before I hand off to Dom, I just want to say we three love interacting. And so if you have any questions along the way, do feel free to ping them in the Q&A section of Teams. And Dom and Ben, I will probably interrupt if I see a question that seems pertinent to answer at the right time. Otherwise, I'll leave you alone. Now, with that in mind, I'm going to hand off to Dom. And why don't you kick us off for the webinar?
Thanks a lot, Tim. Hi, everyone. Lovely to be here today supporting Telefónica and CluedIn. I'm Dom Tomey. I'm a data and AI and app specialist here at Microsoft. I'm really pleased to be opening the session today. So I just wanted to kind of share my thoughts really and some of the things that we're seeing here at Microsoft. With the rise of AI, we're seeing that there's a need more than ever to have quality governed data. Customers, much like yourselves, they're experiencing major complexities with their data estate, which is hampering some of the insights that they need to gather. According to a bunch of reports that I've been reading over the past few months, on average, businesses have at least 16 applications to kind of leverage customer data, and probably about 25 different data sources to generate those customer insights that are important to them. If you think about how many systems that you have as an organization, whether you're looking at sales or marketing or finance or HR, IT or operations, it's a lot to manage. And because you're likely doing a lot of the legwork manually, often the trust in those results is not really there. Now, 87% of organizations believe that AI will give them a kind of competitive edge. But it's like the old phrase says, your AI is only going to be as good as your data. So the question is, how do we combat this? And what I'm seeing in the market is that there's certainly a need for things like data cataloging. So you want to understand what data that you've got, where it is, why it's being used, who's using it, understanding the full kind of estate of your data so that you can understand things like lineage. The other things that we're seeing is things like data quality and enrichment is a massive need. So you want to be able to remove things like duplicates, or you want to be able to fix problems at source, or even enrich your data with other data sources that will give you the insights that you need as a business. Talking about things like names and address and phone numbers, emails, date of birth, but also things like product codes. And if you're an organization that's going through an acquisition and you're merging different data sources together, data quality is a massively important topic. As well as that, there's the subject of kind of data governance. So driving that ownership of data and defining glossaries that give you that consistent view of data, mandating policies so people understand how they can use the data within the organization is also a really important topic for things like regulatory compliance, things like GDPR, ESG, all of those kind of problematic things that you have to face as an organization and report on. And then finally, they're using things like master data management to unify that data, to create that best record, a single view of everything that's going on within their organization. In the old days, you would have it where you'd look at just customer data and you might master that, or you might use another system to look at product data and different types of data to give you that single view. But what we're seeing is now that because data's coming together, organizations really want to look at everything. They want to look at their data that's related to people. They want to look at their data that's related to places and things that they may be creating. Now, all of that drives data democratization, which is what everybody wants now. You want that self-service environment within your organization, enabling your business to be able to search, find, validate, and use the data that you see fit. You want it categorized, you want it integrated, linked, cleansed, governed, and mastered so that you can make more intelligent decisions. Now, that's really what today's about. You know, if you had faster access to data, trusted, governed data, a single view of everything, you'd be able to drive those meaningful insights. And that's what we at Microsoft, and partnering with people like CluedIn and Telefónica, are enabling our customers to do. So that's what today's all about. As an organization, we're really excited to be partnering with CluedIn and Telefónica as they have all of those answers on how to achieve that catalog, cleansed, mastered data that you can use as an organization to drive new insights, make more informed decisions, and ultimately be ready for data-led initiatives that you may be embarking on, such as AI. So with that in mind, I'm going to hand you over to Ben now, who will provide you with an overview of some of the different ways that you can achieve this through the use of Microsoft Fabric, Purview, and obviously CluedIn. So over to you, Ben.
Cool. Thanks for that, Dom. So my name is Ben Jarvis, and I'm CTO for Data and AI at Telefónica Tech. So today I just wanted to talk through what we see as some of the key elements towards building a data-driven culture, but also how Fabric helps us to deliver on those elements. So typically data platforms have been a very technical undertaking that's driven by IT. And there's commonly a struggle to get adoption from the business, as the objectives of the data team don't always align with the business. And that's because the data team is commonly focused on the technical aspects of building a platform. So things like ingestion and building out ETL routines and building out data pipelines, rather than ensuring that the business has the tools and enablement that are needed to actually drive value from data. And this is where we're seeing a movement towards data teams enabling the organization to build that data-driven culture. And rather than a data platform being a purely technical undertaking, we want to turn it into a wider business transformation where we're moving towards us using that data to drive those intelligent decisions that Dominic was talking about, and help to drive those actions that help the organization achieve its objectives. And this requires us to think wider than technology and ensure that we're considering how we enable the business to use the data, but also have the right governance in place to enable the experimentation with the right guardrails in place, and have the right business change elements in place to take them on that journey to using data effectively. So at Telefónica Tech, we're really seeing Fabric as an enabler for embedding that data-driven culture. So it's covering a lot of these elements other than the technology that are helping us to embed data into the business. So from a technology point of view, it's given us the kind of standard elements that we'd expect. So it's given us a scalable and secure platform that's built on a software as a service architecture that has the right tools in place to enable us to deliver value quickly, but without having to worry about some of the elements we typically have to worry about in a cloud architecture. So things like infrastructure and networking and those kind of things. But as well as the technology, from an enablement point of view, it's got tools in place for technical and non-technical users. So there's tools there for both your citizen developers who are more comfortable in low-code tools, but also your pro developers who are comfortable in tools like Python and SQL and those kind of things. And it's got the right guardrails in place to enable self-service on that data and tools to help business users understand the data sets that are available to them so they can start to exploit some of those data sets. And having the right governance is key. And Fabric has integration with tools such as Purview so that we can start to categorize data and understand where it is used. It also has a single security model that draws on some of the data loss prevention features of Office 365. And of course, there's close integration with CluedIn, so we can ensure that all of the data assets that we're building out in our platform are mastered and governed appropriately, with the right processes in place to understand the quality of that data and ensure that we're considering that quality as we build the platform. And then finally, it has the right tools to bring the team on that journey with a single environment for collaboration across our technical and non-technical users. That has a tool set that's familiar to users of tools like Office 365 and really close integration with the wider Microsoft ecosystem. And also, just because the platform is in a SaaS environment, we can get started really quickly and start to build a fast feedback loop and drive adoption by delivering that value quickly. So rather than us having to spend months spinning up the platform and getting all of the infrastructure in place, we can ingest some data, do some transformation on it, and start delivering some analytics to the users within a matter of days. So it makes that process really quick and drives that adoption within the business. So in terms of Fabric itself, it brings together all of the tools that are needed to ingest, transform, and ingest and enrich data in a single software as a service platform. And that platform is underpinned by a single data lake, which is called OneLake. And on top of that data lake, we've got a governance layer so we can understand what data is in the platform and secure it appropriately. And this means that our business users, data engineers, data scientists, and everybody else who needs access to data can work within one tool set and collaborate in one environment. And here at Telefónica Tech, we've built some accelerators on top of Fabric that help provide some consistent patterns and enable our data products to be delivered consistently and delivered rapidly. So we've got some tools that sit on top of that platform to help you deliver that value really quickly and scale across a really large team of developers. So just to wrap up, I was going to talk through some elements of how we'd actually get started with Fabric as a platform. And we've got a standard process, and essentially that involves us identifying a high value business use case. So we want to identify something we can deploy to Fabric that's going to deliver value to the business really quickly and give them some kind of tangible value from that platform. We'll then look to perform an experiment so we can understand the feasibility of implementing that use case. So that would involve things like understanding whether data quality is correct before we go to implement that use case, but also understanding if we've actually got all of the right data there so we can actually gain some value from it. Then from that, we want to actually go ahead and build a solution. So we want to build a really quick and rapid MVP so we can get something out there and start getting feedback from it. And with that, we then want to start to roll that out to the business and get them to test and assure that that data product we're delivering is providing value to them. And then as soon as possible, we want to get that deployed into production and start to gather some feedback and monitor that that solution is delivering value. And then from that feedback from the business, we can then go back around that loop and start to identify further use cases, do further experiments, and start to rapidly build out those data products that will deliver that value to the business. So essentially, we want to take an approach that's as agile as possible and allows us to deliver value as quickly as possible. And with the tools that we've got in Fabric, we're enabled to do that as a technical team. And that's all I had to cover today. So I'll hand over to Tim now to talk about some of the recent developments in CluedIn.
Thanks, gents. Thanks, Dominic, and thanks, Ben. So I thought of multiple ways to start this presentation. And I think in this session, I think the best way that I wanted to start it was to trigger off what Ben and Dominic kind of were starting to allude to. And there are a couple of key words that Ben highlighted there that I think are important. I'm sure some of you in the group of people attending this webinar have seen those huge technology stack logo pictures where it breaks up all the categories and it says here are the players for infrastructure and security and things like this, and it's somewhat overwhelming. I think the key thing that we've identified here at CluedIn and Microsoft and Telefónica Tech is this importance that the biggest return of investment that we see right now is how do we bring in the business into this supply chain of data. Ben just showed diagrams of some pretty amazing tools that allow us to build analytics and real-time intelligence and detect flows of IoT data and data quality anomalies with Data Activator. Of course, Power BI leading in the business intelligence space. We've got plenty of tools in IT and engineering to do some pretty amazing things. And one of the kind of key kind of concepts behind MDM and data governance that kind of pulled me into this space was they had this novel idea about 30 years ago that it was important to bring the business and IT together. And if you fast forward to today, the involvement of business in the supply chain of data has really come down to the business being consumers of data, great, and producers of data. But one of the things that Fabric is stitching together is the fact that IT and business, they need to play a role. Now, what do I mean by business? What I usually mean by this is there are people that are buried in the actual lines of business at our companies. They're in the marketing teams, they're in the sales teams, they're in the HR, the accounting, the finance teams. They know more about a certain piece of data, a certain business domain than anyone else. They can spot a data quality issue like no one else. They can spot a data quality issue that can't be coded, that can't be detected via a pattern. Just something as simple as, why is this company on our customer list? They're not a company. Where did this come from? These are things that the value that bringing the business into the supply chain of data can help with. Now, I am the first person to argue with this in that, isn't this something we've been trying to do for so long? We've been trying to bring the business and IT together. I mean, look at all the tools in Fabric. We've got tools for engineering. We've got tools for warehousing. We've got tools for real-time intelligence. We've got tools for building beautiful business intelligence charts. We're given AI Studio, Azure AI Studio, to build custom large language models. Wow, we've got a lot of power there. But actually, where a lot of companies are stumbling are still on this ability to the data we're feeding with them. This is to Dominic's point before. You know, the data we're feeding with it, it's not built on a foundation. For us at CluedIn, what we've identified is the most important thing that companies should be doing today is somehow bridging the business and the IT. Now, there's other elements I could argue here, which is, right, so what has changed? What's changed that will suddenly make this possible? Well, obviously, there's been advances in technology, just in general. Look how easy it is to get something like Fabric. SaaS, spin up, it's already available. I can already start computing. I don't have to acquire hardware. I don't even have to install anything. I don't have to choose regions. I've got it. So there's technical advances that have happened in the industry that have made this much more possible. But one of the big elements especially when we're trying to bridge the business and IT, is the introduction of AI, these large language models. Because apart from all the amazing things that I'm sure all of us are using it for on a daily basis, one of the other key elements is that it allows to translate what a business user is intending to impose into the data, their business IP, without asking them to be technical. For those of you who are on the call who are from an engineering background, historically we've given the business these tools to wield that have asked them to build things like regular expressions, right? So I don't know about you, but I've been an engineer for many, many years, and I still have no idea how to write these things. I have to Google it every time, but yet we have to realize ourselves for the importance of bringing the business into this supply chain of data is for them not to be technical. It's for them to bring in their business knowledge. It's for them to identify data quality issues we can't pick up in our IT and engineering pipelines. So one of the things that keeps me confident and that makes me sleep at night at CluedIn is that our customers, our partners like Microsoft and Telefónica Tech, CluedIn is built on the backbone of Microsoft. So not only is CluedIn, this cloud designed platform that is built on pillars of data, infrastructure, storage, security, that trust that we get from Microsoft, but there's that native integrations into the other places where you want data to be. And it's not just Fabric. For operational reasons, we want it in the Power Platform. For operational reasons, we want it in our CRM system, Dynamics. For analytical reasons, we want it in OneLake. We want it in ADLS Gen 2. We might not have made the transition to OneLake as of yet. CluedIn still to date, make sure we have this great ecosystem play. That if you're in that Microsoft gravity, Fabric for analytics, Purview for governance, Azure Data Factory for data movement, just a few examples there. You're going to feel this native experience with CluedIn. We're really leaning on the shoulders of giants here. And a couple of key ways that this shines through, as part of bringing people into the supply chain of data, process is one of those big elements. CluedIn integrates natively into the Power Automate platform to enable not only the hundreds of connectors that it already supports for Slack, Teams, email, ServiceNow, Jira, ticketing systems, not to mention OneLake as well, which is also supported in Power Automate. And so at CluedIn and Telefónica and Microsoft, we're really making sure that we live up to this mantra that Microsoft gives. As you might have seen these quotes, don't make me the chief integration officer. And that Fabric, and I can assume no pun intended, was really about stitching these core pillars of data management together. And CluedIn is also making sure that stitching feels native and organic. So one of the things we're excited from the joint three teams here to announce at FabCon in Sweden, we will be going GA with our integrations into the entire Microsoft Fabric stack. That includes Data Activator, Real-Time Intelligence, Synapse Engineering, Synapse Warehouse, OneLake, obviously, support for open data formats, Parquet, Delta, etc. But also introducing native integrations into Azure AI Studio, Azure Databricks, and this is just a short list of the integrations that are already available to Microsoft customers with CluedIn. And to Ben and to Dominic's point, when we are proliferating data for analytics, whether it's Fabric or whether it's Power BI or whether it's something more operational, let's make sure we're delivering high quality data. Dominic touched on this point of him being exposed to the evolution of data catalogs becoming more and more important. And Microsoft Purview is Microsoft's story towards data governance. Data governance is this huge umbrella of categories. Catalogs are there, workflow is there, quality is there, MDM is there, ownership, all the defensive elements like audit trails, the big umbrella of categories. And when it comes to Microsoft Purview, it helps us answer a couple of these key questions we all need to answer as enterprises. Number one, what data do I have? Number two, where is it coming from? Where is it going? Number three, what is happening along the way? Number four, who's responsible across this supply chain of data? They are very defensive elements of data governance. One of the things I applaud the Microsoft Purview team for is their new focus on the kind of offensive, not the defensive, the offensive elements of Microsoft data governance. And this comes in the form of data products. And everyone has their interpretation of what data products are. But for me, what Purview has shown is that Microsoft Purview introduces not only the business into the supply chain of data, but it also has these kind of commercial elements to it, in that a data product is somewhat an abstraction over the technology. It is an indication to the business. Here are some assets, some files, some tables, some Power BI charts that we as a business are investing in. And these are some of the pivots that are happening in the data governance space to move it away from this heavily defensive thing into something that is actually enabling for all your Fabric workloads, for all your Fabric insights as well. One of the things we're super excited about to introduce at the FabCon in Sweden with Dom, with Ben, is the real-time lineage that CluedIn now writes back to Microsoft Purview. And one of the mantras we had when generating this was someone should be able to look into Purview and be able to tell someone else what that user did in CluedIn. In CluedIn, it's all about making sure you make that data ready for insight. You clean it, you standardize it, you harmonize it, you get rid of duplicates, you enrich it, you make it more valuable. That's a lot of processes. There's mapping in that, there's cleaning in that, there's rules in that, there's policies in that. CluedIn will automatically write back all of this lineage into Purview. Purview, as the name suggests, that is your end-to-end estate. I can go cross-cloud, I can go cross-tool. All we need to be as platforms like CluedIn is good citizens that we write our lineage, our audit trail back to these tools as well. So we're really excited. It's taken a little bit of time to get to this point, but working with our joint customers, we got to this point where the lineage is detailed and really, really helps in answering this question of the where, the what, the why, the who, and the when. And I'm sure we've all been in those situations where we've built these amazing pipelines and these amazing reports and amazing AI and machine learning tools, but where we've lacked is that ability to push it into production. And that often comes from the fact that we can't show these types of things. We can't show the proof of what happened to it along the way and where that answer actually originated from. So in addition to this, what is governance without process? And, process is often seen as this defensive thing. It slows things down. And those that have had exposure to things like data quality and data governance and MDM know it's the complete opposite in reality. It is an accelerator. Once you've actually got this beautiful, to Dom's point, single source of truth, you can act fast. You can build co-pilots faster. You know where to get the data from. You know it's trusted. You know it's covered by these people. There's responsibility chains there. That is something very different from picking it up from a lake. And so for this, we have embedded, for those of you who are familiar to Power Automate, this might seem and look very familiar. We are bringing Power Automate directly into the CluedIn platform to help you build those end-to-end processes. How many chains of approval does this have to go through? Are there escalations involved? And one of the biggest things our customers asked us for was, can you please ship with templates? Don't make me an expert in building workflows. use your experience to bring in the what does a good workflow look like. And so this hooks nicely into the Power Automate environment to make sure we can cater for pinging who, when, where, and what, and on the right channel as well. So before I move on, there seems to be a couple of questions, guys, coming in. I might, the session is recorded, so happy to share that afterwards. And feel free to ask keep on asking questions in there. We'll get to them in a second. So bringing it all together. I think maybe Ben and Dom, if you want to turn your cameras and mics back on, I'm going to stop. I think that would be a good time to do that. I think if we're bringing this all together, I think the key kind of messages we're trying to impose and deliver in this is the key to success is bringing the business and IT together. And that is an amalgamation of the Fabric stack, the end-to-end data analytics stack, and then the governance elements. Let's bring the business in. Let's make sure we're doing things right, regulated. Let's make sure we have low risk. Let's make sure we have traceability and auditability on this. I don't have to be that person that is saying, if you're feeding bad data quality into any initiative, just by nature, by proxy of that, it's a bad start. These large language models are, unfortunately, again, even though they're intelligent, they aren't yet intelligent enough to deal with bad input. And so AI and machine learning, obviously that is a hot topic for absolutely everybody. I'm talking to a lot of executives, and one of the key things they're wanting to do, Dom and Ben, is I want to build our own Copilot. I want to instill our entire company's knowledge of 30 years into this Copilot. And I want to make sure that new employees are met with a Copilot that can tell them the history and the employees and the customer list. And they can tell them where's their best use of time in the industry. You can imagine at the same time, although that's a prolific idea, the chaos that would be involved in that for most companies. So it is a yin and yang type of situation with making sure we've got good pillars of both. We've got the aggressive parts of analytics and machine learning. We've got the defensive and offensive elements of governance to help us with that. The other piece is bringing in that native feel of workflow, bringing in that native experience. Now, let's be honest, Dom and Ben, Fabric is bringing together components that a lot of us should already be familiar with. Synapse Engineering, Synapse Warehouse, Power BI, but giving you that SaaS experience as well. Now, before I hand off to answer some questions with Dom and Ben, I'm just going to rub some more salt in the wound here. Ben and I will be in Sweden, in Stockholm, and we'll be having a lovely dinner, and we might have drinks, who knows? And we'll each have our own booth where you can visit Telefónica Tech, and you can visit CluedIn to check out some of these new advances and new pieces of innovation. Who knows, Microsoft might be there as well. They probably should be, but I'm sure you'll have lots of people that you can talk to from Dom's side as well. I think with that, I might open and close. I might first stop sharing my screen, and I might ask some of the questions that we've got in the chat. So Ben, I might ask, I might start with you. So there is a lot of choice in the analytical space. And where are the kind of discussions happening for your clients in regards to Fabric? Where is that discussion starting? Where do you think the kind of evolution of moving towards Fabric is coming from?
Yeah, I think something we're seeing with Fabric is previously we'd generally be engaged by the IT portion of the business. So it's kind of an IT team is coming out and leading a data platform program, and they want to obviously get that platform in and start ingesting data and building out those processes. Where something we found with Fabric is that now we're able to engage directly with those business users. So they've obviously got access to some of these tools in Fabric, and they can kind of do some of this work themselves, but bring in a partner like us to help with some of the technical aspects and making sure they've got the right governance, etc., in place. So I think that's definitely something we're seeing. Is like, rather than being engaged by an IT team, we might be engaged by a marketing team that wants to get some more insight on their campaign data. We might be engaged by a finance team that wants to get more insight on some of their data. So it's allowing us to get closer to those business users and work more closely with them and build out those really useful use cases. So
I think a comment on that would be, in the discussions we're having as well, the complexity is often not with the technology, it's more with the engagement of the business, the buy-in, and how we're going to get people involved and things like this. And it's one of those, it's a complex type of situation. The best advice I could ever give was something I heard someone I spoke to at a Gartner conference in Orlando, where they painted the end picture to the business. This is what I'll give you. This is what I'll give you in the end. And you can work back from there, because I think it's one thing for us as practitioners to all sit here and say, you need to fix your data quality. It's another thing to actually picture, what is that actually going to result in? This particular person, what they did is they showed a co-pilot for their business with data quality cleaned and without. And it was a really vivid moment where Copilot is almost that form factor where bad answers stand out like a sore thumb, don't they? Like, you can spot it. And that's a form factor that can sometimes be hidden behind a beautiful pie chart. You can get lost in the, oh, it looks good. And then when you dive into the detail, you can't get that same macro view when you're interacting with a Copilot. And so I guess my input there would be just, paint the end goal and work back from there. And that often helps clients. There's a couple of other questions. What happens, and maybe Dom, you and I can take this one together. What happens if we're trying to generate lineage in Purview for a scanning source that's not actually supported? Let's just say you're trying to bring in data from a HubSpot, or you're trying to bring it in from a Workday or something like this. You kick us off, Dom. What's your advice on that?
So I think for me, that's where the partners are really important. People like Telefónica. Yeah. So just because it's not supported, in the standard documentation, there's always ways around these things. So don't discount that. My advice would be to reach out to Telefónica and have a chat with them about that, because they might be able to advise on some different ways that you could achieve that.
100%.
Yeah, definitely. Just on that, I'd say that Purview's got a really rich set of APIs and is really extensible. So that's something we've done a lot of work with customers around, is extending the base Purview platform using those APIs to get around some of those limitations.
It's also worth calling out that I will speak for myself and my opinions are my own. But what we're seeing most enterprises doing is that they have this push that everything's going to get into the lake. And so the catalog that supports 400 sources is becoming, in our exposure, less and less necessary. However, if you've got tools like Azure Data Factory that are actually connecting to the source systems and generating their lineage and saying, I came from Dynamics, I came from Salesforce, I came from these places, you don't necessarily need the scanners to also support that as well. To Ben's point, the REST API is there to be able to basically plug in anything. And this is what CluedIn is using to generate its. There is no CluedIn scanner. We are using the REST APIs to do that. And to that point, you kind of need to be involved with software and vendors that are thinking, I'm not going to be the owner of lineage. Purview is going to be the end-to-end owner of lineage. It's my role to play a good citizen on that of, here's what I did. Here's what I did as part of that supply chain. So questions around, do you have, guys, I don't know which one this is directed at. We might figure out who it's best to answer as we ask it, but do you have an approximate price for Azure Kubernetes Service, AKS? The thing is that we, as customers, are going to pay for records in SaaS but that's not the only pricing, right? Dom, I think maybe that's best for you.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, it's a bit one of those how long's a piece of string question. I think we'd need to dig into that a little bit. So be more than happy to follow up with you, Marek, to have a chat about that with the guys at Telefónica, and we can work out what you're trying to do, and then we can promote some models to you. So, but there is documentation, publicly available on Kubernetes services pricing. But yeah, I always find in these types of situations, it's best to understand a little bit more about the use case so that we can dig into that deeper.
Natasha will share the 3 people on this call, their details, so you can ping us to get that for sure. There's another question, which I think is just, in a way, it's solidifying something we've already talked about, guys, is one of the large obstacles, and I'm not reading the whole thing, I'm just reading parts of it. One of the large obstacles we see is that it's very hard to get buy-in to initiate some of those great initiatives. And I just echo back to this. Yeah, I get you. And I don't think the right way to do it is to say, if we fix data quality, AI will be better. I think you really need to be able to portray and forecast, this is what I give you with or without. And, like you could even do that with business intelligence. Here's a chart that shows you the next set of customers you should go after. And here's another chart. One has been through a governance program and the other is not. Which one do you want? And, if someone can look at that and say, most of our customers aren't in Sweden, where the hell did this come from? You can help get that buy-in of, right, I completely understand. It's up for us as practitioners to say, yes, that's not buying another analytical tool. That's investing in data governance. Like that's what will get you that. Bringing the business in will get you that. And I think that's the way best to do it. That was from Anton. Thanks for the question. So end-to-end traceability tools have been on the market for more than 10 years. Yeah, Calibra, Data Galaxy, Elation. Let's be honest, there's also open standards around data lineage, open lineage as an example of that as well. What makes your offering between CluedIn and Purview different? Maybe, Dom, I'm going to pass to you for a little bit of this of what do you think differentiates Purview on this in the space of data governance?
So from my point of view, I think that, obviously a lot of organizations have Microsoft as a foundation. Okay, so that's the core component to it, is that, why go elsewhere when you can actually do it all in one stack? And that leads into the bit that we were talking about at the top of the call and what you were talking about, Tim, where, that kind of complexity of data picture that you see on loads of presentations. People are trying to actually rationalize their data estate and bring their data estate into a more cohesive platform view. And I think that the Purview approach definitely enables you to do that. So that would be my view. There is some very good, I've worked for a few of these organizations before I was at Microsoft that do master data management, or they do data governance. They all have their own unique differentiators. But I think what you need to look at is, the way that the market's going in terms of trying to break down that siloed approach to data, trying to bring your estate into something that's a lot easier to understand. So that would be my answer.
So I'm going to add a couple of things into this. Once again, my opinion is my own. It's not necessarily shared by others. So Microsoft had this product called Azure Purview. They had this product called Microsoft Security and Trust, or Security and Compliance Center. And they both had aspects of the offensive side of data governance and the defensive side. Almost overnight, they've been merged into one product, which means now you have this suite of solutions that cover audit trails, e-discovery, GDPR, subject access requests, catalogs, workflow, process, ownership, the offensive and the defensive elements. And for that reason, it's a pretty complete data governance solution. Don't make me the chief integration officer is one thing I always come back to. And sometimes integration is easy, and sometimes it's really hard and time-consuming and expensive. I would say on the CluedIn and Purview side, I feel confident in saying this because I had the pleasure of working with the Microsoft Purview product team over the last few months. Both CluedIn and Purview, and to that point, Telefónica Tech, have this joint vision and view. It's so important to bring the business in. And both CluedIn and Purview are hyper-focused on making sure it is technology that can be wielded by the experts on data, not the experts in data. And there's a big difference between saying, I know how to work with data versus I know that data like the back of my hand, and I can spot an issue and an integrity and a resolution issue no one will ever spot. For example, a hash at the end of a product name means it's out of life. No one in IT, no one in engineering, no large language model in the world will ever help you solve that problem. We need to bring in the business and help out with delivering high quality data to the end, to the edge of the business. And I would say what CluedIn and Purview have as a differentiation there is a hyper focus on you won't see script, you won't see SQL, you won't see Python. You'll see an interface that is targeted towards the domain experts. Because you know what? Fabric is giving us enough power in the engineering and IT department to do our job on the supply chain. What I need is Sarah to come in, who is the expert on our products and can say, we don't sell Barbies. Why is there a Barbie on this list? We sell pet food. And who are we, Ben, Dominic, and I, to look at data and go, pet food looks odd, but who am I to delete that record? And when you come to this critical data, like customers and products, suppliers and vendors, it's I don't mean to be that dad in the room, but when you come to that important data, the difference between a record that's of high integrity and low is genuinely the difference between losing money and risking the business, risking your brand, and things like this. So next question will be very interesting, your UX paradigm to make it easy for data owners, stewards, and frontline. Agreed. Guess what's helped, guys? Large language models. And you can see this proliferating through Microsoft products. There's co-pilots for everything now, isn't there, Dom? Power BI, the Office 365 Mail one is fantastic. And the others are getting better over time. But I think for me, the big bridge that is said, right, now the business can actually get involved is that translation of, I want a phone number to look like this, or I want a phone number to be an international standard, or can you just fix our phone numbers? I don't require the end user to be an expert on policies around what a pattern looks like for that, or what an RFC 3966 standard is. Shame on me, I should go into the room and into the corner and cry that I even know what that RFC standard is. What we need is the business to bridge. Right, if we see this in a store, that means this, and no one else is going to know that. And the large language helps us bridge that. Guys, we're out of questions. Dom, Ben, thanks for the session. Thanks for your input. Thanks for your content. Ben, I'll see you in Sweden. Dominic, thank you so much for your session. I hope everyone on this call has a good day and a good evening wherever you are. So thank you so much. See you, team.
Thanks a lot.
Brilliant. Thanks.
Cheers. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.